Uh, Hello, good morning to everyone. Bon dia, buenos dias. Today we are going to have the presentation in English of the health research call of La Caixa Foundation. It's a pleasure for us to welcome you here today. This is the fourth edition of this call. This is the most important call of the research program of La Caixa Foundation. It's working quite well to our understanding and regarding taking into account the feedback that we have of our expert evaluators and the grantees of the call, but we always need to improve it and fine tuning so we can make it the best possible selection process and the most accurate and robust selection process in the sake of responsibility towards you, towards those who present proposals to this call. So thank you very much for being here today. I'm together, my name is Ignacio Lopez, but I'm not alone here. I'm together with Carla Carbonell from the Department of Research as well and Health of La Caixa Foundation. And together, what we will try to do today is just to, of course, try to solve all the questions that you may have. So just one house-tidying issue. So you can start making questions from now in the comments, in the chat here. But we will do the first presentation of the call, and then we will try to answer all the questions that you may pose. So I will start with a little bit of context for this call. So we can start. So this is the biggest call in health from a philanthropical institution in Spain and Portugal. One of the specific conditions, interesting issues of this call is that it is for the Iberian region, so for Spain and Portugal. We are happy today to welcome the Portuguese researchers and science managers that you may join us. And now that I say that, I would like to outline maybe three pieces of news which are interesting to today's presentation. The first one of them is that we will continue in this fourth edition of the call to have the same budget that we had last year. This is good news because in these especially difficult times that we are all going through, budget restrictions will increase in the future, but La Caixa Foundation has decided to make an effort and keep the same budget that we had last year. So this is the first piece of news. The second would be that we don't have much changes in relation to the selection procedure. So you will see that basically we have the same rules for participation that we had last year. So this is the second piece of news. And I would say that the third one, and very important, is that we continue to have the collaboration with the Portuguese government, with the Fundação para a Ciência e a Tecnologia from Portugal, that matches the funds that we allocate in Portugal through the call. So that means that the FCT doubles the number of projects that we allocate in Portugal. So that's quite a driver as well for Portuguese researchers because of course you have double of chances to get a contribution. So let's go with the first slide then first, and very briefly, just a reminder of the context of that call. La Caixa Foundation is the biggest philanthropical institution in Spain and Portugal. It is an endowed foundation. So basically what we do is we have quite a number of assets. It's around 20 billion, which are invested through Criteria Caixa in different sectors. Of course, the most known is banking, CaixaBank, and the BPI in Portugal. But we have several other investments in energy and so on in telecommunications, in real estate, and with the money that happens to those investments to provide to us, we do the different activities at the foundation, at the social welfare area, the cultural one, education, and research and innovation. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll see that the research side of the foundation has been increasing in the last years quite a lot. So now it represents an important figure of the budget of the foundation, and this call, the health research call, is one of the most important calls in this context. Next slide, and here we will start. I will pass the floor to Carla. She will continue explaining the details of the call, and we will be answering questions that you can start introducing in the chat from now, but we will answer the questions in the end. So Carla, please go ahead and continue with the call.
Do you have what it takes to cure cancer? Do you have what it takes to cure COVID-19? Do you have what it takes to cure Alzheimer's? Some of the biggest challenges facing science and society are related to health, and only those people with the most imagination and talent can overcome them. That's why the La Caixa Foundation's Health Research Call is aimed at promoting the most promising initiatives with the greatest social impact in the following areas: neuroscience, oncology, cardiovascular and associated metabolic diseases, infectious diseases, and enabling technologies related to the previous 4 health areas. Get up to 500,000 euros for projects promoted by a single organisation, and up to 1 million euros for projects promoted by a research consortium of 2 to 5 organisations, provided they are located in Spain or Portugal. Both civil organisations and patient associations can take part in all the projects to improve the social impact of your proposal. The selection process has 2 phases. The first phase is carried out remotely by peer reviewers, resulting in a shortlist of the best 60 to 75 projects that will then have a face-to-face interview with an expert committee. All evaluators involved in this call are international experts in the different fields. The guidelines and rules for this call are available on the website. Send your proposal between the 20th of October and the 3rd of December 2020. It is only through the most brilliant scientific teams that we can imagine a future where disease can be overcome. Working together to face the challenge.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And as Nacho was saying, I will go for more technical details of the health research call, so we can go with the presentation. As I'm sure that you already know, and as you could see in the video, our call has 5 thematic areas: neuroscience, oncology, cardiovascular and associated metabolic diseases, infectious diseases, and enabling technologies. Remember that enabling technologies has to be associated with one of the previous thematic areas. You can present 2 kinds of projects: single organization projects up to 500,000, and consortium projects between 2 and 5 research performing organizations, and that the budget could go up to 1 million. Both type of projects can also add civil society organizations, for example, as patient organizations that could also match the project to apply. As Nacho was telling you before, we have now 75 selected projects, almost 50 million euros of total budget, and some of them are in the collaboration with the FCT and Fundación Luzón. As we were telling you before, the evaluation has 2 different phases. A remote evaluation has 4 scores. Reviewers will score your project with 4 different scores, 3 of them related to the scientific excellence and impact of your proposal, and 1 score related to the project leader and team. The interview phase has exactly the same criteria, but the scores are only 2 of them, one related as a whole into your project and one related to the project leader and team as well. Timeline of this edition, the 4th edition of the Health Research Co. As you could have already seen, we have the rules of participation and all the documentation in the web in the La Caixa Foundation website from September 2nd. So you can check anything you need in our website. Online system opened October 20th, and it will close the 3rd of December automatically. That means that the 3rd of December at 2 o'clock Central European time, it will be automatically closed. In few seconds, all the applications that have not been submitted will be discarded, okay, will be withdrawn. All the evaluation process will start after Christmas, first week of January, more or less, and the interviews will take place the 27th and 28th of May. So please mark those 2 days on your agenda, as if you get through the interviews, you will be calling one of those 2 days. Finally, the idea is to publish the results mid-June, and the projects will be able to start between September and December 2021. Only 2 minimal and small changes on the rules of participation this year. Please read them, take into account articles 5.7 and 5.17. 5.7 is related to the idea that if in the remote evaluation a project gets a score under 5.5, next year the project leader won't be able to apply as a project leader. As a news, and for this year, it also applies to PIs, partners in the proposal. So if this year any project that gets a score in the remote evaluation under 5.5, next year the project leader and the PIs, the partners of the proposal, won't be able to apply as project leader. They will be always able to be partners of a proposal, but not to be a leader of the proposal. Also, Article 5.17 just reminds you that the for-profit organizations cannot apply on this call. Just have a look to this article, as we have changed a little bit the instructions. So some different users that are in the system, as you can know, the project leader is the PI of the host organization, and it's responsible of the submission of the proposal, okay? Remember again that the system will close the 3rd of December. The principal investigator is the PI of the research performing organizations in case you have a consortium. Civil society organizations this year also are applicants in the system, and in both cases, partners, principal investigators, or civil society organization have to be invited by the project leader to the proposal, okay? You don't need to pre-register in the system. If you are not already in the system, you will get the invitation and then you will go through the registration. We actually advise that's probably the best way to do it. If you are already in the system, no problem, you will get the invitation and go through all the process. Also, the organization manager is the responsible of validate the proposals you present with that organization. That's the organization manager of the host organization, obviously. Just remember that there's a validation button. In the lower part of your screen, you have the submission button, save draft, and validation button. Please use it, as it has exactly the same validations that you will find in the submission. So you can always check that everything is going okay with your proposal, that there's no problem with the invitations or nothing is missing. You can press the validation button at any time. Some key elements that we want to remind you, you can only have one PI for a research performing organization, and the PI for the host organization is the project leader, okay? So universities that, for example, in Spain, all different faculties have the same BAT number, they are the same center, they are the same organization, okay? You will need the validation of the organization manager to be able to submit. You can do that validation at any point, as you can remember. When you get it with the app, when the applicant gets into the system, you just see the first tab with some basic information of your proposal. When you get that information and move forward in the proposal. The other tabs appear. At that point, the organization manager gets an email saying that there's an application that he or she has to approve. You can do that at that point or at any point later on the process, but please remember that they won't be able to submit unless you validate their participation. Keywords. Keywords are really important. It's the main way that we're gonna use to match the reviewers to your application. So please take a deeply thought to decide the keywords related to your proposal. We slightly changed this year the number of keywords that you have to choose. So you will have the main keywords. Those keywords are the keywords that mainly describe your application. You have to choose between 1 and 3, and then you will have the option to add secondary or other important keywords that sum the information in your proposal. But again, think them thoughtfully, because it's the way that we are gonna choose the reviewers that better will review or evaluate your proposal. Reference and publication, it's probably the toughest part of the application, so we please follow the step-by-step manual. As you can, we try to help you and lead you step-by-step through that process. There's a difference this year, as you will be able, that's something that you asked last year and we could improve that, you will be able to delete yourself the publications or reference that you download in your profile. So besides being able to remove them from the application, you will also be able to delete them from your profile, and that will be helpful at the time of reordering the reference or publications. Remember, very important, that the invitations acceptance require 2 steps. Okay, when the project leader invites a PI or a CSO, PIs or CSOs will get an email. In the same email, they will accept or not the invitation. At that point, you will get access to the proposal. Okay, that's the first step. At that point, you will get access to the proposal. Then you can access the proposal, have a look, and decide if you want to participate or not. If you do, that's the second step, and you have to accept or decline the participation. So please remember that those are 2 steps. You will get instructions through the process while you are opening the emails and so on, but please remind there's 2 steps. Again, if you are inviting a PI or a CSO that's already pre-registered in the system, please remember to invite them through the email that's already in the system. If not, the system will think that the user is not there, and that they will ask a new registration. So please make sure that you are inviting the PIs or CSOs with the email in the system. That's the main information that we wanted to share with you. Just remind you that in our webpage, you can find the rules of participation and any useful documents. There's also a facts section that we are improving with the questions that you usually send us by email, and that you can always contact us through the email of the Health Research call at any point, and we will try to help you as soon as possible. So just to remind you that I'm sure that you already know the Caixa Impulse program, but just to let you know that this year the Caixa Impulse Validate will be open from January 19th to March 1st, and that the Caixa Impulse Consolidate program will have a cutoff at this end of 2020 and on spring 2021. At this point, thank you for your attention, and we will start answering your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Carla, for the presentation. And we have been going through the first questions that you are writing in the chat, and we see that there are several about the thematic areas. I will try to answer that. And as well, there are several questions regarding the project leader and beneficiaries. So, Carla, maybe you can take a look at them and answer them after when I finish with the thematic area. So basically, with the example of 2 questions that we have, the first one, if a project, a project in unapplied mathematics to health would be eligible. And there is another one that asks if the oncology thematic area could include implants designed to replace body tissue that have been lost to cancer. Okay, those 2 examples could perfectly fit the enabling technologies fifth thematic area of the call, but always depending on the approach that you are using. So, of course, applied mathematics could be eligible here, but if the project focuses very much in the development or research about some specific issues of the technology that is being applied, that happens the same in relation to the implants to be designed to replace body tissue in cancer. On the other hand, if the project is very much focused through the cancer or oncology side, then probably the recommendation would be, in that case, to go through the oncology thematic area. So in relation to the thematic areas, it's interesting to know that the enabling technologies thematic area we try to define it very similarly to how it is defined by the European Commission. So you take a look at the different technologies that are included there, but as well we take it in a very broad sense. So any technology that you can imagine that can well possibly treat any of the groups of pathologies of the other four thematic areas would be welcome here. But always there are two more recommendations in relation to for you to decide on how you can design your project. First of all, this is the 4th edition of the call, so you can take a look at the 3 other editions. All the projects briefings, all the projects abstracts, you can find them in the web. All of them that had been selected in the different thematic areas, so you can take a look of how the landscape of projects looks like, first of all. And second of all, what Carla said, which is very important, you will have to decide the thematic area in relation to the different evaluators that you would like your project to be evaluated from. So if you want and you have to select very well the keywords that you use, because the remote evaluators will be selected in relation to the keywords that you have used. So this is a very important hint as well. Carla, over to you.
Yes, you sent us several questions related with the PL and the PI participation in the projects. So I'll try to go again through this idea. A PL can only have one proposal in the application at the same time at the same call. But you can be partner or a team member of any other application. So that's not a problem. You can have a team member in your application, and that team member can be a project leader of his own project. So that's not a problem. On the other side, a consortium has to be made by different research performing institutions. So 2 groups from the same institution or 2 groups from the same faculty, if they are under the same university, are not considered 2 institutions. So you can have those groups leaders as team members, but they are not a different research performing organization. So at the same time, you cannot have as team members people. That's not the idea. Peoples of other organizations, if they are participating in the project, people from other organizations, that should be a consortium. So the idea is, to be a consortium has to be researchers from other organizations with another BUT number, and that should be in both senses. I guess that with that I answered the last 3 questions related with this subject.
Okay, there are 2 more questions on the budget, thematic areas and the main objectives of the projects. One of them, for example, asks and says that the objectives of the call seem to be focused on curing diseases conditions. Well, it is not exactly like that, but it is a disease-oriented call. But nevertheless, as you can see in the rules for participation, basic research or fundamental research projects are welcome if they have a connection with the thematic area. And the question is if a project focused on improving patients' outcome and quality of life would be considered, and of course they would, if they involve biomedical research. This is not a social call, it is a biomedical call focused on health. So the answer would be yes. So it is not only about diagnosis or treatments, but as well about improving patients' outcome and quality of life, of course. There is another one in relation to COVID-related social impact. Of course, and La Caixa Foundation, during the first wave, we launched a specific COVID research call, which was evaluated and decided, and we chose through expert evaluation 6 COVID-related research projects that are ongoing now. So in this call, there is not a specific COVID thematic area. Of course, COVID-related projects might be presented to the infectious diseases or regarding, depending on the objectives that they have to the other thematic areas. But we are not looking for a specific impact in COVID-related projects in this call.
I would go ahead with a question related to the budget. You are asking about the 30% limitation on the partners' budget. You don't have a limitation for partners in Spain or Portugal, but you have a limitation for partners, international partners, I mean outside Spain or Portugal. Those partners cannot get a budget over the 30% of the entire budget. Also, you are asking about the for-profit organizations that they cannot apply to the CO and they cannot be members of the consortium, but you can add them in the proposal as subcontracted. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. A couple of other questions about thematic areas. There is a question that exactly says that if cognitive neuroscience would be applicable, and it would, depending on the approach as well, it could go to neurosciences. But it was as well maybe to enabling technologies, probably depending on the approach. There is another issue about thematic areas that we would like to share with you, is that this call had strategically decided, because of the interest of the foundation and the impact of the diseases considered, to have these 5 thematic areas. And what we try is to give equal amount of funding for the 5 different thematic areas. It is not exactly the same, because depending on the budget that the different projects apply for, there are small differences. Taking that into account, and if you take a look at the results of the other years, you can see that there is a different success rate in different thematic areas. So neuroscience is the most demanded, and cardiovascular is the less demanded area. So, but this is information that you can take a look at the website. Another issue about the thematic areas is very specific. Is an application can select more than one thematic area? No, you cannot, because basically the whole evaluation process starts with the selection of the thematic area. For example, the interview in the final selection phase, it is done by 5 different interview panels, one for each thematic area.
There's a specific question about the participation of hospitals in the proposals. If they could be as partners or CSO. That depends on what kind of activity they do in the project. We have projects in both cases. For example, if a hospital does research, part of the research of the project is done in the hospital, I would consider that better to be a partner, as you will have more opportunity to explain the research done there. If they, for example, give you samples or something like that, it might be considered a CSO, but that's on your side. To be able to be a research performing organization, the organization has to be able to perform research. That's the main idea. Besides that, you can decide the participation of a hospital depending on the kind of activity they do in the project.
Okay, there are several other questions about, first of all, thematic areas. There is one about big data acquired from human subjects or Internet of Things devices to improve patients' outcomes. That could be as well eligible for the enabling technologies thematic area. Another one, which is a bit more tricky, is what is the definition of impact for La Caixa? The definition of impact, as it is going to be evaluated by the international experts, you can find it in the rules for participation, okay? But of course, there is a question that arises immediately. Because impact is very different if you take a very fundamental research project or a very clinical or applied research project. What we tell our evaluators, so the ideal would be, for example, that we had a different panel, one for basic research, one for clinical research, for example, but we cannot do that. That would mean that we would have more than 10 different panels. So the same panel is choosing between excellent and impactful projects, both from the most fundamental to the most translational projects. And this is a bit difficult to do. The idea is that impact has to be evaluated in relation to the capacity of impact of the project itself. So what we're looking is for good projects, no matter if they are very basic or very clinical. If they are very basic, what we are going to look for is scientific impact and potential impact in the long future. If we are looking into translational or very close to patients research, we are going to look for more immediate or in short-term impact for the quality of life of patients. So it's let's say, evaluated in relation to the potential of the project itself. So this is basically the answer to that.
More questions related to consortiums. Again, you can add a maximum of 5 research performing organizations. That's including the host organizations, so including the project leader. So project leader and maximum of 4 partners, and you can add a maximum of 3 CSOs. And the activities of the, you're asking if the CSOs can do dissemination activities. Yes, that's one of the kind of activities that CSOs perform more in the projects that we get. Principally, yeah, investigators of the USA are okay, of India are okay. I mean, you can have international partners in the project, so that means also USA and India or any part of the world as partners. The only limitation, it's in the budget. You can have 4 international partners, you will have the budget limitation.
Okay, there is another question about the topic, and it's more about if a service provided to cancer patients at organizational level, I understand that at point of care or hospitals, to improve treatment outcome and quality of life of the patient, would that be eligible? This is more, I mean, it's difficult to say, depends very much on the approach. If it includes technological side or a technological side, let's say that it could be eligible for the enabling technologies 5th thematic topic. But otherwise, if it's a very procedural or social sciences kind of project, maybe this would not be the best, let's say, call for it. But again, the 2 hints are important again. So you can take a look at the projects selected in previous years. You can take a look as well at the expert evaluators in the interview phase. That gives you a very close look of what the experts are and what kind of projects might they be looking for.
There's a really specific question, maybe Nacho, you can help me with that, for personnel budget costs. If I'm understanding the question, okay, the personnel cost should be for people you contract or you have institution that will participate in the project, but if you subcontract some services to do a specific task, I would put that in subcontracting.
Good.
And again, some questions again related to PLs. You cannot participate as a PL in 2 proposals. Besides that, you can be team members of 2 proposals or 30 proposals. You can be PIs in a lot of proposals. You can be PL and PI, PL and team members, but you cannot have 2 proposals as PL.
I'll take one for the enabling technologies area. And the question is it possible to include use cases for 3 thematic topics, oncology, cardiovascular, and infectious diseases? And the answer is yes, this is possible. So the definition, if you take a look at the enabling technologies, is that it has to be enabling technologies in relation to the groups of diseases that are considered in the other thematic areas of the call, and those 3 are considered. So yes, the answer is yes.
More questions about consortiums. A specific question about Portugal. In Portugal, you have that your faculties under the same university have different BAT numbers. So that allows you to have a consortium from the same university, but different faculties. That's the difference. So in Portugal, different from Spain, you can do that. And sometimes you decide to present a project with people from the same university as team members, but also from people from different faculties as consortium. So you are allowed to do that. As research performing institutions with different BAT numbers can go with consortium, okay? And related to the budget, besides the 30% for the international organizations, the only other limit is the 10% of the overheads. There's not other limit in the budget at this sense, neither for Spain or Portugal organizations or international organizations, only those 2 limits. Yeah, that's a really specific question. Can a hospital be a research performing organization in a proposal and a CSO in a different proposal? Yes, it can. And this year it's going to be easier in the system. And as I was telling you before, partners and CSOs are role applicants in the system. So you will be able to have both. The only thing is that when you get when the project leader sends you the invitation and assigns you in the proposal as partner, as PI, or as civil society organization, that's the moment that it's decided the role that you're going to take part in that proposal. Okay, but you can do both, in 2 different proposals. In one proposal, you can be a partner, a principal organization, and on another one, you can be a CSO. Depending on your activity in that project, as I was telling you before, that's something that in hospital happens sometimes.
There is a very specific question for Portugal, but maybe it is not so specific. It says that in Portugal, it's common that researchers from the same university might be members of different FCT research centers.
I just answered that.
Oh, sorry.
It's one of the BATs, and that's the difference between the Spain and Portuguese universities. You're asking about if the PIs need to have a PhD. No, the project leader is the only one that's asked to have a PhD. So the PIs, it's not a need for the PIs. I think we are with all the questions at this point. Nacho?
It seems that we have answered all the questions that we can see in the chat. As you see, we are giving you time to write more questions if you like so. Otherwise, we would start thinking about closing this session. So, well, if there are no more questions from you, well, I would like to thank you very much for having been here today. I hope that we managed to solve some of your questions, but otherwise you can always write an email to us. We saw the address before, but you can find it as well in our website. So thank you very much for having been here. I'm seeing here, thanks so much. So thank you. Thank Carla as well for the presentation and the people that you cannot see, but he's there making that possible. So thank you very much, Monica and Monse and all the rest of the people that makes that possible. So we would like to wish you, normally we do physical presentations and we can have a coffee with you, so, and make it more personal. We don't like that much having the screen between you and us, but we hope that we can see each other soon. Well, there is one last question that we maybe can ask. There is a question about if we can explain better how the FCT co-funding scheme works. And it is, well, basically what we do is the FCT doubles first, we have the whole selection process. When we take a look at the projects in Portugal that have been selected, and we sum, let's say, the amount of money that the call puts in Portugal, and then the FCT doubles that amount of money, and the best ranked projects in the final lists are selected by a committee of the FCT and La Caixa Foundation, and they are selected for funding as well. So the result is that if the normal process would have given to Portugal, let's say X amount of euros, so after the process with FCT, that is 2x. So the FCT doubles the amount of money that the call allocates in Portugal. If you want some more detail of that, you can ask us through mail.
Yes, usually related to this topic, you usually ask also who does the following up of the projects. We usually share meetings, but the rules of the following up of the projects are La Caixa rules in that sense. So we don't make difference between the projects that come from the call or that are in the FCT collaboration. But we share meetings with the FCT and we share the information with the project with the FCT, but are the same rules for the projects.
So then thank you very much again. If you present projects to the call, we would like to wish you luck. Please keep safe in these difficult times and see you soon. Bye-bye.